Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing the long anticipated budget video. If you guys have been following my sort of journey for a while, then you already know what's up, but I'm gonna give a little bit of context just in case anyone's new, but also in case you need a little refresher. Essentially, I recently got a pay raise after a period of being unemployed. Over the summer, I decided to take a couple of months off of work in between two positions, and I recently started a new job about a month ago. One of my goals with this new job was to create a much more solid budget. For the entire time that I was in my past role, I was trying to take like an intuitive approach to budgeting, which essentially meant that I wasn't going to assign any very specific values to different categories. I'm gonna be honest, it was kind of a winging it sort of approach. Unsurprisingly, that didn't work too well. I was having a lot of really high spending months and just really struggling with feeling kind of out of control of my money, and like I didn't quite know where my money was going. I felt a lot of frustration around money, and it was just not a great recipe for success. So going into this new role, I decided I really wanted to basically buckle down on myself when it came to finances and form a new budget that was realistic and gave me a true idea of how much spending money I really have, because at the end of the day, it's not nearly as much as I think it is. So this pay increase that I got with this new role was massive. I'm so grateful for how my earnings increased. I almost doubled my income essentially, and in addition, I was previously hourly with no benefits and I'm now salaried with full benefits. So obviously that's a huge jump in several ways, and I'm really grateful. That being said, because of the fact that I'm now salaried with benefits, there are things that are coming out of my paychecks that I didn't have before. The result of that has been that my paychecks are actually a lot lower than I was expected. I mentioned this in my November reset, but I decided to try out maxing out my 401k, which it's pretty much a 30% allocation to my 401k. We'll see if that ends up sticking. I know that it's kind of a smart move, but it does dig into my paychecks a lot. So I'm gonna continue to weigh whether or not that's worth it. But for now, I'm going to maintain maxing out my 401k. And also I have, of course, my health insurance coming out of my paychecks now, which is a new deduction. So while those things are really amazing things to be putting money towards, they are digging into my paychecks quite a bit. So I'm not working with quite as much money as I thought I would be in terms of creating this budget, which of course is a little bit of a bummer, right? I mean, I won't even lie to you. I was kind of ready to embrace lifestyle creep full on and just like have a little lifestyle upgrade, but that's really not going to be the case. In fact, I'm probably going to have to be much more minimalistic with my spending than I'm used to in order to feel like I'm in a financially stable place. That's the context for this video. So what we're going to be doing today is creating a completely new budget based on my current new paycheck quantity. I started this job back in September, but we're only doing this video now because I hadn't seen what a paycheck was realistically going to look like with the new 401k allotment until my last paycheck that I got just a few days ago. So now I finally have a crystal clear idea of how much money I'm working with, and we can start really diving into creating a budget. So come along, you're gonna budget with me, and I'm excited for this video. It's been a long time coming, and I'm really hoping that this will help me to hold myself a bit more accountable when it comes to my spending. So I do all of my budgeting in Google Sheets. I have a Google Sheets template that I use that I bought on Etsy. I'll have that link down below. I would honestly strongly recommend it. It's made budgeting really fun in 2023. I shouldn't say budgeting, I should say tracking, because realistically, I have not been doing proper budgeting up until this point. I've really just been tracking my expenses and my income, which is good and all, but it's not really helping me to take control of my finances. It helps me to become aware of what I was spending on, but not so much take control. Does that make sense? So let's go ahead and open up my budgeting template. Okay, so this is the budgeting spreadsheet that I currently have for November. I tried to basically strip it down to the bare bones so that we could rework it for this month. So these are my paychecks post everything, post taxes, post 401k, post health insurance. They're $17, $14, $69. So for context, in my last position, my paychecks were usually about $1,500 or $1,600. So despite the fact that my salary almost doubled, I'm really only pulling in an extra $100-ish per paycheck, which is fine. It just means that we're going to have to be a little bit more strategic with where we're placing my money. So I just want to clarify something real quick in terms of my income. So obviously I put in my 2 paychecks here, but this is not typically the only income that I'm making in a month. I would say on most months, I have other income sources. Specifically, I'm almost always making money from Poshmark, and I often am also making money from either Amazon Associates, Ko-fi, Google AdSense, some sort of YouTube related income as well. I also sometimes make money from freelancing. There's lots of other income streams that factor into my money on a monthly basis. The reason that we are not going to be including those when creating this budgeting template is because I want to be budgeting for the worst case scenario. So if I make no money from random income sources, what can I afford with just my paychecks? I don't want to be depending on getting money from those sources because they're not consistent yet. And also I would love as much as possible to be able to push money from those income sources directly into my emergency fund instead of using them for my expenses. Obviously, if I have to use it for my expenses, it is what it is, but the goal is to kind of act like I'm not making that additional money, at least for the time being, since it is typically small amounts, pretty inconsistent, and instead just kind of, when I can, shoveling that into my emergency fund. That's just a little note I want to throw in here. I filmed this in the future, so back to previous reel. I mentioned in my November reset that a lot of my bills have recently increased, so I think it's important that we kind of start there just to get an idea of the things that are already in motion that we have to account for when seeing how much money we actually have to work with. So first of all, we have my rent. I pay $1,900 in rent. I'm splitting rent with my boyfriend. We live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a pretty nice part of Los Angeles, so our rent is pretty expensive. That being said, it's definitely cheaper than it would be if I lived alone, so very grateful for that. As you can see, it's pretty sizable. It's more than half of my income, so that is a huge expense that I obviously need to take into account. Then I have my Epidemic Sound membership. So this should actually disappear because I think I paid for a full year of Epidemic Sound, so this might no longer be relevant. Let me confirm that though. Oh wait, I hate this for me. Why is it charging me $60 a month? I tried to pay for this all at once. No. No. Okay, so it's gonna charge me $300 tomorrow, but that's way better than paying $60 a month. I mean, that would be like double. So it is what it is. But since that's a yearly expense, I'm gonna remove it from bills, and I'm just going to track it as being a one-time variable expense since it's only once per year. The reason why my Epidemic Sound became so expensive is because I started a second channel, and in order to use Epidemic Sound for 2 channels, you need to upgrade to the commercial plan. Then we have TubeBuddy, which is thankfully only $5.99 a month. Love TubeBuddy. I use it for keyword research for all my videos, so definitely not going anywhere. Then we have ClassPass. So this is definitely obviously one of my more expensive subscriptions. It's $199 a month. This is what I use to attend all of my workout classes. I have the maximum plan just because I use it so frequently that even this isn't enough for how often I use it. So we have my Wi-Fi, which tragically went up to $85 a month, which is insane. Spectrum is playing. Then we have electricity. So this one's weird because it's not every single month, but on the months that I do get charged for it, it's usually pretty intense. So it's $200 to $300, but again, it's not on a monthly basis. So I never really know exactly how to budget for it. I just kind of ended up doing the average of a $0 month and a $200 month, which is $100. So I guess we're just gonna stick with that for now. Then we have Patreon. I do pay for one Patreon membership, so that's only $5, thankfully. Laser hair removal. I'm currently on a payment plan because I'm doing laser hair removal, and it's hella expensive. So I have to pay $100 a month for like a year to pay that off. I would really like to pay that off in advance. So hopefully one day, if I, have a random little spurt of income from an unexpected source, I'll just be able to knock that out because I don't love having that as a monthly payment. And then I have Canva Pro. Honestly, I think I might just cancel this. I was using the free trial, but I just really don't want to have to be paying for another YouTube related subscription if I don't have to. And I already have Photoshop, so it's a little extra for me to have Canva Pro. Maybe if I really start making more money with my channel, it'll be worth it again. So that's what my bills section of this budget is looking like. I'm glad that we were able to kind of cut 2 of those out. So when it comes to my expense summary, this is where we're going to be doing the majority of the work in terms of creating a proper budget. So first things first, I want to go ahead and adjust some of these sort of categories in here. As far as gas goes, I have been driving a lot more because I've been having to go into the office a lot more frequently. So I think for the sake of being realistic, we should probably change this number to 120, assuming that I fill up my car twice in a month. So that's unfortunate. Definitely digging into our expenses, but that's okay. Laundry, $40. I guess I would say that's still an accurate-ish summary. I would guess that I spend about $10 a week on laundry. It never actually works out like this. This is very much more just like me taking an average. Vocal lessons, $260. This is a huge expense that I have. Definitely my biggest non-bill consistent expense. I do take vocal lessons and I pay my teachers $65 an hour, so that works out to $260 a month. This comes automatically out of my bank accounts. It's not even something that's like in question anymore. So that's obviously going to stay. Then we have my variable expenses. So previously, like I mentioned, I was keeping everything in the same bucket. So I basically just had this variable expense category and I wasn't breaking it down any more specifically than that. And I think that that really was not the most effective. My thought process with that was just like, well, things vary month to month. But at the end of the day, I still think it would be valuable in slightly more specific categories. I don't need to get into the nitty-gritty, but I would like to at least set amounts for categories that I know are consistently part of my expenses. So we're gonna go ahead and get rid of this variable expenses thing because that is a weenie category to have. So the categories that I want to specifically budget for are coffee, going out, so that would include eating out, as well as like if I went out to a bar or like I went out to the movies, entertainment and eating out essentially. And then I also want to make a category for home because I do feel like I typically end up spending on something home related per month, and I want to set a distinct category for it so that I can continue to prioritize customizing and decorating my home without struggling to figure out how much I should be spending on that on a month-to-month basis. I think just having a category for it would be really useful. And then the last category I'm gonna put is just like wants. So I'm picturing like books, merch, clothes, a beauty product, any of that stuff I think could just fall into this wants category. So those are just gonna be those kind of treat yourself moments where I just kind of want to order something or I see something in a store and I'm like, yes, I need that. So after all of these insane expenses, we only really have $614 left to budget. I think it would be good to aim to put $100 into my emergency fund, which essentially leaves us with $500-ish for variable expenses. For context, my expenses were typically averaging around $1,000 before. So this is gonna be a substantial cut in terms of my spending. First things first though, let's just go ahead and put this $100 in the emergency fund for clarity. So we have $514 left. That's the only like saving or investing that I'm going to put into this budget template. Basically because I'm doing a ton of investing through the 401k, as we discussed. That's literally where like half my money's going. So I feel like the rest of this money really needs to be focused on sustaining my expenses and then of course building a tiny little emergency fund. Okay, in terms of coffee, let's try and calculate this. So I would say when I go out for coffee, it's usually like $8-ish for like a Starbucks for the types of drinks that I get, or going to Alfred. Sometimes I'll also treat my boyfriend, so that usually nets out around 15, sometimes 20 if we're at Starbucks and we get food too. I'm really trying to cut down on the amount of coffee that I have out. I've been having a lot more fun with making drinks at home. I've been doing like flavored matchas and I have my whole coffee cart now, which makes it feel a little bit more special to make drinks at home. So this is honestly a category where I'm really trying to cut back. So I think $50 would be a good benchmark. This used to be like where I spent the most and I used to like get a drink every day, but I'm really trying not to exist like that anymore. So let's try out 50, and if it feels really low after we've done a couple months, then I'll raise it. Going out, I think to be totally realistic here, we should probably put $200, especially if I like go out to a bar and I have to Uber, or even if I go out and buy dinner. Not that we do that frequently, but you know, if we go out for sushi, that's a good $50. If we go to the movies, I'm probably gonna have to spend like 30. So I think 200 is realistic for the month, hopefully. In terms of home, I feel like maybe we could budget $100 a month for home. That's kind of tricky though, because like to buy a piece of furniture, that's obviously going to be way more than $100. This is where the flexibility comes in the sense of like, let's say one month I really want to buy my nightstands, for example. I'm obviously going to allow myself to borrow from the other categories to align with my priorities, but at least having those in the categories and having the clarity of like, okay, I'm moving money over from this category to this category because of X. Like just knowing that and seeing the way that I'm strategically moving around my money and prioritizing the expenses I want to prioritize, like that's I think where I'm really going to feel that sense of I know where my money is and I know where I'm choosing to put it, and that's what I really want to create for myself. And then wants, let's just go ahead and put $100 into wants. And then I feel like what we're really missing here maybe is just sort of a miscellaneous category, and we're just gonna put the remainder in there. So $64.60. Oh wait, what? $64.40. I was like, why are we in the negatives? I feel like this is obviously going to be something that's going to need adjusting as we kind of see how it goes. So if you do keep up with my monthly resets, I'll definitely be updating you guys on how this budget is working for me. We'll continue to modify it as we see it kind of in practice and what patterns I'm noticing. Like for example, I'm always overspending on coffee, or I'm always overestimating my home budget, etc. Obviously we can make shifts as needed. One of the things that I want to do as part of this new budgeting is to have more more frequent money check-ins so that I'm way more aware of how on track I am with the budget and can cut myself off when I've spent enough for the month and be like, okay, Brielle, you're sitting your ass down in this apartment and not spending any more money. I want to find more free activities to do and prioritize social interactions that are free, like having people over, going over other people's apartments, just doing fun things that don't cost money. So I already knew that was a priority, but this has really hammered it home. I'm hoping we'll be able to finish off the year strong and go into 2024 with a really solid budgeting strategy. Anyways, that is it for this budgeting video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I'm really glad that we sat down together and created a system that hopefully will help me to stay a little bit more on track with my financial goals. If you're new to the channel and you've never seen my face before, hello, my name is Brielle. I'm 24 years old. I live in Los Angeles, California, and on my channel we talk about life in my 20s, personal development, productivity. If any of that interests you, definitely be sure to subscribe. If you like this video, you would probably love my monthly resets, so I recommend checking those out. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Bye.